Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee as we get ready for round two of the rain that's moving into the Northeast. You can see on the radar it's just heading right across Pennsylvania through New Jersey and will gradually spread across southern New England. This is going to be another 1 to 2 inch rainfall with some embedded thunderstorms, so there could be some variations, a little bit more variation in amounts than yesterday, which was fairly uniform. Everybody pretty much got between an inch and a half and 2¼ inches of rain across much of the drought areas. And one of the encouraging things, by the way, is that for a lot of areas yesterday, that was the third or second highest rainfall of the entire year. And actually, in the last 4 weeks, we've had three rain events that put are all in the top five. So this could be a sign that at least for this part of the country, the drought is starting to crack. The drought pattern is starting to crack. We have a very, very volatile series of weather models that we're going to be looking at, I think, over the next several days. I think there are so many things in the atmosphere that are at extremes that there's what I would describe as a lot of tension in the atmosphere, a lot of tension that's going to have to be relieved at some point with the development of a storm, of a fairly potent storm system. Now, where that winds up being, I don't know. I would probably tend to favor the Midwest, but we'll see how it plays out. In the meantime, we've got a couple of new model runs to show you, so we'll take it along. And I'm going to go back to the European run from last night because that was another mind-blowing experience, I guess. But here we have today's weather system that's moving through here in the east. Some rain and thunderstorms in eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, northwest Georgia. So that's good news for those areas with the fires. This moves away and we start to dry out going into the weekend. Now, there's some difference in models. What's happening is you got a lot of energy piling on in the southwest, and models are handling that energy a little differently as a couple of pieces of that energy come out. The first piece comes out over the weekend and kind of weakens as it moves east on the GFS, and then you have the second piece that comes out along about Monday night, Tuesday, and that weakens as this high builds up to the north. In the meantime, I just want to show you there is a significant low on the GFS that moves and develops in northeastern New Mexico and brings some snows for Colorado, Utah, Wyoming, and western Nebraska. Now that is what the models have been kind of keying on with a big storm system. However, I'm looking at runs as they come in, and I'm just starting to wonder how this is all going to play out, because here's the new GFS, which has a much less developed low in northeastern Kansas and brings snows up through Nebraska, South Dakota, and into Minnesota. Meanwhile, in the east, that second piece that just kind of moves east, you really can barely find it. And then this is by next Wednesday, we have kind of, to me, a nondescript low centered in southeastern Minnesota with some snows to the north and west of there. A big high building down from eastern Canada, controlling the weather into the middle of next week, if the GFS is correct. I want to show you, however, that there are some different ideas in all this, and I want to go back to last night's European because we don't have the new one. And the European suddenly has decided that that first piece is going to be pretty potent. So it has low pressure in northeastern Alabama by Sunday evening, and by Monday evening it's just east of Boston. So this would suggest the European from last night brought big rains up in here into the northeast and mid-Atlantic states for Monday, late Sunday night into Monday afternoon, and then that's done. And you really can't find any Midwest snowstorm on this. I mean, to me, it's just pretty nondescript, and it just basically has a cold front with a wave on it that moves through later next week, and you don't see anything. This was the European last night, which was just a total reversal of of what it was showing for prior runs. And I have to tell you, it's been all over the place. It went from having a low near Detroit with a big snow for Illinois, Indiana, and Chicago. Then it took it and moved it back up into Iowa. Then it was down in the upper peninsula of Michigan. It also had a low that wound up eventually going into south of Nova Scotia as a less than 960 millibar low. I mean, this model has been jumping in all different directions, and I don't know where it's going to go today. In the meantime, it does suggest that it will turn colder in the east, but nothing crazy cold, and we're still looking at what's going on in the upper atmosphere because that is just so also been very, very volatile. You've got so much going on, especially with all the warming that's happening up in the polar areas. I think the fact that you have, you've had unprecedented warming going on in the polar areas is kind of, I don't know what you maybe destabilize is the wrong word, but I think it's really at least temporarily changed how things are working, and models are having a very difficult time with this, in my opinion. And we keep seeing these big volatile swings from run to run, which are just, very difficult to forecast and kind of hard to take. It's sort of frustrating here. Here's the upper air on the new GFS run. And, all right, why is it doing this? Okay, did I accidentally? Okay, that's my doing. Sorry, wrong page. Okay, so let's go through the GFS at the upper air. And you can see this is the southwestern system that's really the problem because we don't know how much of that's going to get kicked out and when it gets kicked out. You can see on here on this run, it kind of gets kicked out and disappears. You get a deep trough that forms in the west on the GFS as we move a week from now and beyond, and then that gradually shifts eastward. So, there's a lot of there's just too much going on. And I don't know how this ultimately gets resolved in the long term. So let's just look at a couple of other things. I don't want to say, by the way, that any of the possibilities that we've looked at over the last couple of days are now off the table because every run's different. So we're just going to have to sort of go along with it and see what happens. Okay, there we go. I wanted to show you the total precip here. I'll get a little tighter. And much of this is from today. You can see that there's another stripe of 2-inch plus rains that's produced for today, and also some beneficial rains in parts of the southeast, but not as much near the coastal plain, but more in the mountains and points to the west, which is good news. And because I know a lot of you might be interested in how much snow the models are producing through all of this, so why don't we look at that across the United States and take a look at least through as far out as I have, which is a week from today on this model run. And you can see here that it does have a fairly substantial amount of snow in the western states and on up through Minnesota and the Dakotas. It even actually generates a little bit of snow here in the east during the next several days. Nothing too substantial in my view, but I'm going to see how these models play out. And let's look, just one more time, we'll go to the surface map. I'm kind of giving you an abbreviated view here because there's a time issue for me today, so I'm trying to get this done for you. Now, here we are. This is later next week. We basically have a low that's up in northeast of Duluth and a trailing cold front that runs from the Great Lakes to the southeast with some rains ahead of it and some fairly cold air coming in behind it into the plains and into the Rockies. So the idea with the trough being, at least for the time being, in the west, this is what we're going to be looking at. So let's leave it at that. Why don't we go forward and we'll take a look at what the European does today, and I'll put up a post on my website, meteorologistjoechaffe.com. And for local forecasts for New York City, Long Island, the Hudson Valley, Connecticut, New Jersey, and Eastern Pennsylvania, you can download my app and subscribe to my forecasts. The app is free. The subscription is just 99 cents a month. It gives you an ad-free experience in terms of what I post, satellites, radars, and of course my long-range posts on there, so you can have it as easy access to your phone. It's just $1 a month, and I do appreciate it if you do subscribe. It does help me out trying to keep all this stuff going. So anyway, have a great day. And also, don't forget, meteorologistjoechaffe.com. weatherlongisland.com, nycweathernow.com, as we have that heavy rain moving on through.